Go live. Let's see what happens now. Okay, so now we are connected. Yes. It happens. Usually when you are presenting at that time, it's always the demo, there is something or something should happen, there should be some technical problem because the system they know how we are working, so that's why they always want to have some kind of a problem. So, wow, welcome back, my friends. Welcome to Microsoft Excel Power Platform Meetup. I'm your friend Faraz Sheikh from Saudi Arabia, and today I'm here with one of my friend Gregor from Austria, who is originally from Austria, but right now he's in a very beautiful country, Switzerland. That's my very favorite place, and I like Swiss chocolates. And I've been in Engelberg and Interlaken. Those are lovely places, I would say that.
I am. I live
So
near Interlaken, actually.
yeah, yeah, right now you're in Interlaken. So, my friends, if you are visiting Switzerland, you should visit Interlaken. It's a lovely place. So, let's start up with, let me quickly share my screen. I thought I was sharing my screen. Yeah, so we all are here. So, the today who is the hot seat guy. Okay, so just quickly about myself, if you haven't know me, that I'm Faraz Sheikh and Microsoft MVP over here in Saudi Arabia and MMCD, Microsoft Innovative Educator, Office Master, blogger, and a YouTuber, and who runs a meetup with you in Saudi Arabia. And I invite my friends over here on the meetup so they can come and they can talk about the technology, they can share the knowledge with us. And that's my mission with my friends. And my passion is always to learn with uh, you guys and gain and share the knowledge. And also, I am an organizer for My Data Summit along with my friend Ilgar, and that was a summit which happened last year. So we have a massive mega event we have did it where we invited around like 33 speakers around the globe, and that was a massive mega event. So if you just like to go and see some past meetup recordings, you can feel free to scan the QR code, and you can definitely go and watch those recordings. And these are some of the past for 2023 meetups. So definitely you can have a look on that. And some of our upcoming meetups, which is by David. David is going to talk about less known parts of Excel. That's really interesting. He has kept it a very secret stuff where we are just going to know, he's going to tell us which are the less known parts of Excel. So David is from Sweden, and he's also an MVP from Sweden. And I'm really looking forward to see his presentation along with today's presentation. And then we have something scheduled in May as well as in June, which will be soon announced on our meetup page. So make sure that you are subscribed on our meetup page. And as usual, I always invite my friends to please come and forward if you have anything to share, the knowledge about Microsoft Excel or even Google Sheets, anything related to technology you'd like to come and share about Power Platform, Azure, please feel free to come and share it on our meetup page. And that's how I met Gregor. Gregor has wrote me a message and he said that for us, I would be interested in showing this killer measure to on your meetup group. So I said, why not? Welcome. Sharing knowledge is always great, fun and a great thing. So if you're interested, make sure that you write me back on excelexciting@outlook.com. And just few things just to make sure that to get a better experience, make sure that you just mute your mic, and most of you now know what you have to do. And just to keep a note, my friends, that this session is live streaming and recorded right now, and you can find the recordings on the YouTube page where YouTube/me Excel Exciting, and on Saudi Arabia meetup page you can find all that. So today I would like to hear from all the participants who are joining from where. So I know people are joining from Romania, LA. Wow, wonderful. And Romania, my friend Christian is there. So just drop me in the chat from where are you joining, so that we would know that where you're joining from. And equally in the YouTube, we can see people are joining from India. Okay, that's great. Lovely places you're here. So let me introduce today's guest who is on the hot seat, Gregor. Gregor is, as I initiate in the beginning of my meetup, I told you that I met Gregor through LinkedIn, and he texted me and he messaged me, and he wanted to present, and I was really happy. And as I mentioned, he's from Australia, currently in Switzerland, the beautiful country which I love. And I'll leave the floor to Gregor, where he can introduce him about himself more, and he can tell about this exciting today event. So over to you, my friend, and the stage is yours.
Sure. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, there's not that much to say. Yeah, I live in Switzerland, in Bern. Originally, I'm from Austria, like you already said. Yeah, I have a small IT company. We're basically doing Power BI development, consulting, mostly development though. That's the most interesting part, right? And we started building this external tool last year. I'm sure some of you have already heard about it. We have a lot of feedback from the community. So we already have like almost 6,000 downloads now in the last, I would say, 6 months maybe. And we have around 500 users every week. So it's quite popular. And we're churning out like new versions all the time. We just had a little fix today because we released a big version last week, and there were 1 or 2 bugs, and now we just released a quick update to that. And Measure Killer is about cleaning up your Power BI report, your data set, and it can also do a few other things, which I'm going to show you now. And yeah, so we're a small group, and the March update came out just I think last night or today, so that's exciting. And yeah, this on visual interactions, like one of you mentioned, that's completely new. I have it actually on, so it's gonna be, you're gonna see that when I start sharing my screen. So yeah, let me just show you the basic functions of Measure Killer, and then I'm gonna show you the really cool things that you can do with it. But I want to start easy because I think some of you don't really know it yet. So let me share my screen here. So I'm just gonna go to the website first. I can find it here somewhere. So yeah, it's an external tool for Power BI, right? And has some deleting measures, columns. It can also help you clean up your whole tenant. And it runs, Measure Killer runs through the whole report, but also the data set. So it looks at visuals and things like this, but it also looks at relationships and measure expressions, stuff like that. So it also has some limitations, and you can look through that on the website. It's not much, but I think at least it's good to know. And then we also have some compatibility here, like what works, what doesn't work. For example, we cannot analyze stuff like dashboards or paginated reports because they're just so different, and there is no really any files. I mean, paginated reports, it has a kind of a file that we could analyze, but it's just a completely different architecture. So that's not covered, at least not right now. But yeah, most other things you can do. It also works with most visuals. We only have a few visuals that it's not compatible with because they just don't really contain any data from the report, but maybe they take something from the Power BI service, like the metrics visual, for example. And most of the stuff of Measure Killer is free to use. Just the online mode, which can run through your tenant and do everything kind of automatically for you. That is like a paid upgrade, but if you're willing to get all the files, like the data set and the thin files, connected to it and just download it yourself, you can use it for free and have all the features there. So I have a little report prepared here. This is my standard sales report that I always show, and this is just the 2-page report. So we have some profit, revenue, stuff like this. But the more interesting part is probably the model. So we have some measures here. and then also a couple of tables. And for example, if I want to run Measure Killer from inside this report, I can launch it, and maybe I should just close it first. I can launch it from within Power BI Desktop, so it's part of those external tools. But you can only do that if you install the admin version. So you need admin rights to basically use this kind of functionality. Then there's also a portable version where you don't need admin rights, and then that wouldn't show up here. Basically, that's the only difference. If somebody has a question, I would really encourage you to just go ahead and maybe unmute yourself, because I cannot really see the chat. Maybe, I don't know, if there's anything in the chat or something, just please interrupt me. I'm not super excited to talk for 30 minutes straight.
Sure, I will definitely. I'm just watching my screen. Okay, so you can go ahead with the presentation.
So we can launch it from.
I have a question, Gregor.
Yeah, sure.
Is it included in the business ops package from Power BI Tips?
Not yet, but I spoke with Mike Carlo a couple of weeks ago, and he said they will release it we'll put it into the next release. So
cool. Thank you.
It should go in there soon. Yeah. So yeah, if you launch it from within one report, and this is just report and dataset, same thing basically. So then Measure Killer has those three modes kind of. And in this case, we're just going to analyze single report dataset, and then it also can analyze multiple reports connected to one dataset, and then even in the service. And this is basically the last thing is the paid feature. But we'll start simple here. And so we have redone the whole UI. It looked quite different. Christian, I think, was there maybe like 6 months ago. It must have looked very different back then. This is the main window, and here you can already see that it connected to the port, so the local instance of analysis services that is running in the background. And then the only other thing I need to do is I need to select this report again here, just because we need to have the Power BI file as well as the port. And once I selected this, I can click on Run, and now it's doing its analysis. And what it does, it's basically running through the whole report and the model, and then I get this output here. And we have really over the last few months we have redone the whole logic, how it works twice, and I think now it's really good. It's very smart. It can detect almost anything. And what we see here is every artifact in the report, so every measure or column, we can see also where it's located in, like which table. For example, this is measure, that's in my measure table, right? And here at the end, I can see if it's used or not. So if it's used anywhere in the model, like a calculated column, referencing it, or it's used somewhere in a relationship, that's basically the model. Or if it's used anywhere in a visual, in a filter, in a conditional formatting, custom visual, everything basically, and then it will tell me, yeah, if it's used or not. That's the main functionality, I would say. And you can see the ones that have the red background, those are the unused ones. So those are potentially, we can potentially take those out and thus optimize our report a little bit. And when I open one of those artifacts, I can see where it's used. So the age column of my customers table, which is this thing here, right? I can see that it's used in a clustered column chart on the customers page. So we can also verify that. So now I just have to find the clustered column chart, right? So what was this? This was age. Well, I guess it should be this one, customers by age. And now we can also use this new, we can see the new, design in Power BI Desktop and how it works. Actually, I'm not really familiar with it yet, but I think, oh yeah, here are my fields, right? So in here we can see now this is age.
Turn off preview pages when you are doing demos.
Yeah, exactly. The only thing I didn't find really intuitive is I think you have to right click here to or somehow to do the aggregation. It was not really that good, I think. I just turned it on this morning. Haven't really done much with it yet. Yeah. But so age is used here, so we can verify if measure killer is correct or not. And apparently it's also used on a filter. And this is what we can see here. So it's two things, right? We saw that it's used on a filter and in a visual. Right? So that's the visual, and this is the filter. Yeah. So this is how it works generally, and then you can go through your whole model. And if you're just interested in the unused part, right? You have this button here, and then you can see all the unused artifacts, and you can also sort them, for example, by size, and then you get the biggest column that maybe you want to get rid of first. And how measure killer can also help you delete unused stuff is there's two functions here. So one is to kill the measures, kill the unused measures, and I can just kill all three, basically those year-to-date measures here at the bottom, those are unused. I can just go here, kill measures, kill all unused, click on yes. And now it's doing this in the background. And it automatically runs again. So it will do the whole analysis again and then show us basically the result after those measures have been deleted. And now if I go back to filter unused, I can see that they are gone. And also they should be gone from here. And you can see those year to date. It's just not there anymore. But my report is still working. Right? That's the main thing. Any questions? Any comments as to how this is working?
Is it a common practice to take a backup of the report before trying any external tool?
I think it's a good idea. I mean, it depends on what the external tool is doing, right? I mean, for us, I think the riskiest thing or the thing that can really do damage is to do exactly what I just did, like to just kill the measures. But if I don't save this thing here, I can still get out of it, right? And my version has not been touched. But I think it's good to always have a backup file. And also, we do have an option inside measure killer to create a documentation. This is basically save results. You can create an Excel file, and then you will also have the DAX expressions of all the measures there. So that's also a good way to recover stuff if something really were to break. Even though with measures we're quite confident, we haven't really seen any trouble there. It's more in Power Query where something could happen, meaning deleting columns. And yeah, if you don't want to have measure killer do it, you can also create a C# script, but in this case, we already deleted all the measures to it, but it can create a C# script for you, and then you can just copy paste this into Tabular Editor and delete it there if that's more convenient for you. But I would always encourage you to do backups. So how can we get rid of columns? We have a whole different window when I select kill columns, and then I have the option to either remove a certain column or to remove other columns, right? It's just a different function in Power Query. And here I get all the tables that have unused columns, and they're sorted by the total size in my data model that I can save by removing those unused columns. So here we have around 1.1 megabytes, and it's because those two columns are put together, they have 1.1 megabytes, and we don't need them And then I can just go to apply. And since I selected remove other columns, you can see that this is like my old M code basically, and then it adds one step, columns removed by a measure killer, and it does a table select columns. So it's selecting basically the columns to leave in that table and everything else it takes out. Or I can do remove columns, and then I have to select them, and then it's basically explicitly removing those two, depending on which one I prefer. Maybe the remove other columns is a little better. Here, and then what happens is I need to copy this M code. So that's basically what Measure Killer gives me. I go into Power Query. I have to do this manually. There's no automatic deleting unused columns. And then I just copy paste this code, and you can see it's just adding one step. It's basically this thing here. And then it removes those two columns in this step. So this is I think a very good way to remove columns, because you can always delete this step and then get back your original version, and there's no damage done. Yeah, so those are basically the two main ways to get rid of measures or columns. Any questions?
No, nothing so far. I'm just checking the YouTube chat. Nothing so far.
Right.
Maybe we can get some questions. So I have a question here.
Sure.
Regarding so this measure killer, basically it goes and identify the space of your model. It goes and identify the space of the model, and then it advises you that which is the column can be removed, or it can, which is not in use. And
Yes.
what about that later on if I need that column? How that can be managed with this one? Let's say that if I removed it, or then I can just go to the query step and revoke it, or what?
Yes. Exactly. Like you see that I here in this step I removed it, right? And then if you go to this little wheel, you can, for example, put them back in later. It's very easy. And now I say, oh, actually I want to keep order line item, click on OK. And now it's only taking out the, which one was it? Order quantity. No, or not order quantity. Order number is the only one then that it got rid of. So you can amend this at any time, and just close and apply, and it will do whatever you want, right? So that's, I think removing columns is quite it's a good balance between user friendliness, because you just have to copy paste the code, but it's also kind of safe because there's nothing that can go wrong, because you can always just delete the step and go back to your original version, which had all those columns that you originally loaded into the model.
Christian says that he never tried with Power Query, and I will have to test it out. So that would be interesting.
Sure.
So let me check if there are any other questions.
Yeah. We can quickly also take a look at this documentation part. It's not only about deleting stuff, right? It's also quite good at documenting your report. So now, if I go to here to this save results, now I can. It's giving me basically the name of my report plus a date timestamp, and I click on OK. And now, if I open this Excel file, we can see what Measure Killer is documenting in Excel, and this is more maybe something for you. So here we have all the artifacts again, and we have them multiple times depending on how often they are used. So for example, my revenue measure is used 9 times in the model according to Measure Killer, and you can see the DAX expression. You can see the size of the column for columns. You can see where it's referenced, if it's referenced in a different object, like a different measure. You can see where it's used, in which visual it's used, which page. it basically gives you a very, very detailed documentation of your whole report and model. And for especially the DAX expression is quite important for a lot of people, because that's also something that if something ever went wrong, you could recover your measures through that, right? You just copy paste it back into Power BI and recreate that measure, or it could also be a calculated column. Right? It's documenting those as well. Yeah.
So this documentation, like what it happens is, this documentation, which will happen, it will be for, can be used for an auditing purpose as well. We can use it for an audit purpose as well.
It's complete. Mm-hmm.
Does it make versions as well, or how it is?
Yeah, so I mean, it basically every time you do it, you get this date and timestamp. So you just have the name of the report and when you created the documentation. So it doesn't really know anything else. But of course, you could count, I don't know, the number of measures you have. You could see, I don't know, the expressions that you have in your columns or measures. And you can use that as a kind of proof to how this report looked, or what the metadata looked like when you created this documentation.
Great.
So the really cool functionality that is really very, very new, we just did this around 2 weeks ago, and it came out last week. That's the ultimate version of Measure Killer, I would say, is to analyze a shared or golden data set online. So you don't need to have any files on your computer. This is basically going to search through your Power BI tenant. I just want to show you this, and then we're basically done with the main features, I would say. So here, first thing I need to do is I need to sign in with my account. And now I'm getting a list of workspaces that this account has access to. And those are only premium workspaces, because the connection works through XMLA, and XMLA is a premium feature. So then we can only analyze data sets that reside within premium workspaces, either PPU or PPC, that doesn't really matter. And now, for example, I can select my MK, my Measure Killer test workspace. And now I can see all the data sets that are in this workspace. And in my case, I want to analyze the weather data set because there I have multiple reports connected to this data set. I can show it to you. It's right here. So this is the weather data set in the MK workspace, and it's pulling some weather data from some online API. And then there is multiple reports built on top of this shared or golden data set, whatever you want to call it. And we can see this, those are 3 reports, but then there's also a report in my PPU test workspace that also has a temperature 2 report that also connects to this data set. So it could be spread out all over your tenant, and Measure Killer will find it if you have access to that workspace. So you need to have at least contributor in those workspaces, and of course generally access to the workspace. Then Measure Killer can search through those workspaces and find any reports that are connected to the data set that you select here. If I go to connect, I have to authenticate again. So in this case, again, I have to authenticate with my account. And now it's giving me a list of workspaces that should be searched. So here now, if I have some test workspaces, some stuff that is not really important, I can take those out, because for everything that we search, it's doing some API calls. So this Power BI REST API. And there is some kind of limit. We don't really know where this limit is. Some people say it's 200 API calls per hour. We've tried with already 400 API calls and it was no problem, but there is some kind of limit apparently. So we're very transparent in how many API calls we send, because we don't want you to hit this limit unnecessarily. So I'm going to select a couple of workspaces, and then we'll see in the end. I mean, I already know that it's in those two, but I could also just select all of them, right? Because I'm not sure. I want to find any report, and all of them are maybe important. So I can just go to submit, and now it will search through all of those workspaces, and it will find the reports that are connected to this data set. And we can see it's exactly those 4 that I showed before. And 3 of them are in the same workspace as the data set, and 1 of them is somewhere else. And now I have the option to take out 1 of them, but in my case, I want to keep them, keep all those 4, and I can go to fetch reports. And now you can also see it already did 28 calls. So it did 26 because I selected all those 26 workspaces. It did 2 API calls before to get the list of workspaces and the list of data sets. And now, since I have 4 reports, it will do 4 more calls, and it will be a total of 32. And I say, yes, that's okay. And now it's basically downloading those reports in the background, just the layout. So the layout is only the metadata. Measure Killer never looks at any actual data. We only analyze the metadata that you have in your model or your reports. So like the name of the column, but not what is inside the column. And also we only need XMLA read. So we're not doing any kind of write operation on any data set or anything. We're only reading. Yeah. And now it finished this, and I can go to run Measure Killer, and now it's doing like we saw before, maybe with this 1 report. It will analyze those 4 reports and the model together, and it's going to give me an output based on all those things. And what we can see now, for example, is that some artifacts do not belong to the weather dataset, but they actually belong to one of those thin files or those reports. So some measures have been built in those thin reports themselves, and then are only used there, right? Because they don't even exist in the data set. So that's why they can belong also to a different report. Even this temperature 2, for example, yeah, can be, so there could be all kinds of artifacts in there, not only from the data set. And this mode is really meant for also, I mean, use cases where you have a data set that is somewhere in the Power BI service. It is there, it is used, people are building all kinds of report all around, and at some point you just don't know anymore which part of. Sorry, did we have a question?
No, there's no question there.
Okay. So it's that it means basically that yeah, at some point you just don't know anymore which artifacts are still used, which are used, and which are not. And maybe you want to optimize this data set at some point, and Measure Killer can help you figure out which columns, which measures are people using, and which actually have never been used or are not in use anywhere. And you might be able to delete those and to make your data set smaller. Yeah.
There is a question in the chat by Christian. Can this documentation detail be extracted with macro?
Yeah, so Christian, that's so wait a second, let me just go through this step by step. The documentation details be extracted with a macro in tabular editor. What do you mean? So what I showed in the Excel file, or this thing in the table here?
Yeah, the one in the Excel file. So instead of exporting to Excel, like it's the default here, can I see the script behind it and run it in tabular editor?
So the whole measure killer is programmed in Python, so it's not C#. It has its own logic. So you can only use the output basically. You cannot really run the whole thing. It's I think almost 3,000 lines of code at this point. It's quite big.
Yeah,
There's a
understood.
lot of logic in there, so you can only use the output basically and do something with that today.
Okay, so I will probably have to import the Excel that I did export and use it from there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, long term, we're thinking that measure killer could be like a API that you call, and you can say, okay, it could be part of my deployment process somehow. And then before you deploy like a data set, you can run the measure killer API or something, and then it will give you stuff maybe that you don't need. That's like the long term.
Yeah, maybe
vision,
included in the best practice analyzer in
yeah,
tabulate.
exactly.
Something like this.
Exactly. It could be
It
something
would
like
be
this.
perfect.
Yeah, but we're just not there yet. We have to do one step at a time. And yeah.
Understand.
And regarding the lineage, it's not. We have this information, of course, right? You saw, but we didn't really do anything with it yet. But I think it might be useful to do something with it.
Maybe
But,
also export it like you
yeah.
are doing with the other export. Maybe do
Yeah.
the, I don't know, this item is part of this workspace and is used in this report, and something like you did with the normal documentation, but do it with the lineage because you already have access to it.
Yes, we have it. I mean, but we only have it for this one data set, right? So we don't pull everything. So we could only give you the reports
kind
that
of
are
where
connected.
used, something like
Yeah.
where used,
Yeah,
which is
and
totally okay. But for the beginning, it's totally okay.
but that's also what you have here already, right? I mean, you can figure it out here because you can also, if I create the Excel file here now, I will see I have multiple reports in this report list, in this report column, because it is used in all kinds of reports, right? So maybe let me show you this quickly.
Yeah, you have the report name. It's okay.
Yeah, right, exactly. So here you can see in which report what is used, right? So if I only want to see what is used in temperature 2, I can see all the artifacts that are used there.
Yeah, if you put a pivot table over it, you can extract data really cool. So yeah, this is this was the question. So it can be done. Thank you.
And the other thing is, yeah, the API calls, I think nobody really knows. It's kind of weird. But
why do you count them? It seemed pretty warning. Well, you already have 28. I'm doing 4 more. It's kind of scary. This is why I'm asking.
Yeah. I mean, because I want to be like, we want to be super transparent because we don't know really if there's a limit, if the limit will change. Like I said, we tested it with 400 API calls and it was no problem, but you have to check. Yeah, it depends on what other scripts are maybe running in the organization, and it's like there's no documentation on it. So we just want to be sure that people know what Measure Killer is doing, and that we have full transparency here. And yeah, and then it's up to the user basically how many API calls you want to send, and maybe risk. I don't know what will happen if you hit the limit, or if there's still a limit. I really don't know.
Okay, got it.
Gregor, how about like if you yeah, please go ahead, Krishan. Yes, please.
No, I'm thinking that this XMLA connection and the new feature, it's really cool for the big enterprise models or PPU, because otherwise for normal users, as long as you don't have access to XMLA, not really useful. But for big companies, this is really, really cool.
Right, exactly. And then that's also because we thought, hey, we have this logic and we can somehow build it. And that's why we said, hey, let's go in this direction, because there is no solution for this yet, right? I mean, they're kind of stuck with their data sets and they always get bigger and bigger and bigger, and nobody can do anything about it. And I thought, hey, maybe we will be able to help here. And that's why we built this mode. And yeah, I mean, we have clients who have like 20, 30 reports connected to the data set, but it should even work with 100 or more. I mean, yeah, let's see where the limit is, you know. I hope you guys, there's some background music here. Can you guys hear this?
No, we can't.
No, I don't.
Okay, great. I was just worried. Yeah, but those are basically the main functionalities. And yeah, it's you can everybody can download it on measurekiller.com. We just put out the new version. Give it a try. We also have a feedback section on our website. So that's where we collect all the, if you have any bugs or anything, please post it there. I'm also going to put this in the chat. But yeah.
I will reinstall it because I had my laptop reinstalled completely 1 month ago and I lost it.
Okay.
And, now you convinced me to reinstall it.
Great. Yeah, I hope you'll give it. Let me know what you think. And yeah, maybe we can also show it over there in the Romania user group.
Sure. Let me check the schedule because I know I have at least 6 sessions already planned for this year, and I'll have to check the schedule.
Okay, cool.
Sure.
With regard to this measure killer, is it only for Power BI or even for Excel users as well?
Measure killer?
Yes.
Yeah, so it only works for Power BI because, you know, we're analyzing actually the PBIX files. And the PBIX files have this report layout inside them, which have all kinds of, it's really a messy file, but it has all the information like this visual is using this thing, is doing this, it's doing this. And we built the whole logic of Measure Killer based on this, plus, of course, the model. And most external tools analyze only the model, meaning the relationships and all the stuff, right? That's the kind of the easy part. But the really hard part is the report, this layout, because it's super crazy. And it's very, very strange to figure out 100%. Yeah, so that's why we also have some limitation, especially like I said in Power Query. There's still, I'm sure there's some kind of crazy thing that you can do with the queries that we haven't thought of yet, and maybe that's why it might not be working. Yeah, but we got a lot of feedback already over the last month, so we always made it better. So.
Great. And I just have a question, related to API call. Now, let's say that if there is another kind of an service or another kind of a service that has been already calling an API. So in that case, let's say I have a limit of 200 and I'm using Measure Killer where it takes like 10 calls. Now, how are you calculating the API call?
You mean the number of API calls?
Yeah, like my question is here, like if I'm using as a service in Power BI where I'm already calling from some other third party service where I'm calling that API, and then I'm using a measure killer, how it is calculating? It is just calculating that how many times the measure killer have called it, or it's doing a cumulative calculation?
The API calls, you mean, yeah?
Yes.
No, what we're calculating is only how many API calls Measure Killer sends. Okay. We have no idea what else is going on. I don't know if there's anywhere you can find out what your current quota is, but I think this limit is maybe not a really hard limit, but I don't know exactly. I'm really curious to get some answers from Microsoft on this, because I feel like nobody really knows if there is still a limit, how high it is, how it works exactly. But I thought that especially in bigger organizations where maybe they have already some scripts running, I don't know, do you know Power BI Sentinel, for example? It does some documentation also of your whole Power BI tenant, and they also do a lot of API calls. And for them, it's also quite important to not hit the limit. And that's why I thought, okay, if this is a kind of a sensitive topic and people have to be careful, then at least we want to have full transparency there, you know, that nobody gets into trouble because of us.
Yeah, that was great. That was really nice, Gregor.
We
You
have a
have
question, right? So does it work on closed files? What is a closed file? I don't understand.
Yeah, sorry, that's just me asking that. I've just been playing with it. And when I click on the drop down to choose the file, the PBX file,
yeah,
it's showing not just the file that I've got open in Power BI, it's showing the closed files I've got as well. And when I then click on it to do the analysis, it's getting mixed up between the data in the closed file and the data in the open one.
Yes, that's a potential risk because the user has to select that. We cannot do this automatically. We can only get the port automatically. The port, we get all the ports from all the files that are open, right? But then you still need to tell us which report layout, basically which PBX file, which visuals you want to analyze. And there's no connection, it has been impossible so far to really connect those two, even though it seems so obvious, right? That's why you get a list of the last files that you opened as in the drop down, and then you just select the one on top most of the time. That's
okay. So that's hopefully the one you've still got currently open.
Yeah, if you select the wrong one, then the whole analysis will.
It just messes it up completely.
Then it will search for the visuals in report A, and it will compare it with the model of report B.
Yeah.
We don't know what the result will be. So it's the model connection is pretty straightforward. That's what all external tools do, right? They connect to this local instance of analysis services that is like a process that is running on the computer as soon as you open Power BI. So that's what we're doing too. That's how we get all the model information, the tables, measures, and relationships and stuff. And then the other thing is just we're basically unzipping the PBIX, which is zip file, and in that we can get this little file that is this JSON file, this report layout, and from there we get basically all the information about the visuals and conditional formatting and everything.
Well, maybe you can adapt it for Excel too with the data models, because it's also SSIS and the Excel, it's also a zip file basically in the future.
The same thing, Christian, exactly.
Yeah, you guys need to help us on that. I have no idea about Excel, really.
Yeah, just replace the .xlsx with a .zip, and you will see what's behind it.
Maybe it will magically work. Yeah. No, I mean, we also thought about stuff like paginated reports, but already Power BI is so tough to crack, and we've invested so much time in this. So we don't really want to open another box at this point. We just want to make it better now, and it works 100%, and then maybe we can think about that. But
yeah, understandable.
Yeah.
And of course, you'll have to even charge for XMLA. I saw that it's on the basic plan.
Yeah. So we do want to charge, especially we're charging for this XMLA functionality because this is the most complex, I would say, and especially for support. Like, because some bigger companies, they wanna pay, and they want to have dedicated support. They want to have somebody they can call if they have any problems, and then we're giving them this option. But most people, they don't want to pay for a Power BI external tool. That's why most things are free. But then, you have to download your reports yourself and put it into Measure Killer, basically. That's actually what I haven't shown, but it's quite easy. You just select all the files, and then it will do the same thing.
Great.
I'm just installing the newest version now, the admin version.
Great. Yeah, cool.
So,
Well, thank you. Great session today. And I've learned something new.
Thanks, guys.
So anything else you have, Gregor? Any last slides you have to share something? Any last slides you have? Anything to share so that people can connect with you? And definitely, if you'd like to connect with Gregor, definitely you can connect with him on LinkedIn. He's available, and on the Meetup page, all his details are there, as well as on the YouTube link, it is available. So thank you so much, Gregor, for coming. But please stay back, don't sign out, okay? Because we are just going to stop the live recording from YouTube, but we'll be still back on Zoom. So thank you, my friends. Thank you for joining today, and from all the global places. You know, it's really lovely to come here and talk about this technology and see how they work. We have some amazing stuff being done by Gregor and the team. It's really lovely to see such kind of stuff, you know, which can really make our daily life easier. So definitely go and check out Measure Killer, and do give your feedback and to give your feedback on the session. And one last thing, usually, Gregor, when we end the session on YouTube, we ask our presenter to say something. It could be anything, whatever you like to feel to say it. It could be a quote from Steve Jobs or your own quote, something inspirational, so related to tech or non-tech, anything, you know, but something that can really you feel like saying. You can please feel free
Oh,
to
wow.
say some last words.
I didn't prepare anything. I'm not gonna come up with something super inspirational now in the last few seconds. I'm going to this conference later this week, SQL Bits. So I think that will inspire me. I think it's really good that we go back to the office, meet each other again. That's giving us a lot of energy. And I would just encourage everybody also to, yeah, meet colleagues again, talk about Power BI, Excel, whatever we're passionate about. And I think that's a really good way to motivate ourselves and others to do good work, right? That's what it's about in the end. So thank you so much. And yeah, let me know. Maybe we can do something in Saudi Arabia for us.
Sure. So we'll be signing out from the YouTube, but we'll be still back on the Zoom. Okay. Take care, my friends. Bye.